In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NFL games happening on January 4th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NFL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Green Bay Packers versus Minnesota Vikings. This matchup has that weird Week 18 vibe where both teams know exactly who they are, but the market is still reacting to headlines instead of context. You have Minnesota sitting at 8-8, out of the playoff race but chasing a winning season at home, and that matters a lot more in that building than people sometimes admit. On the other side, Green Bay walks in at 9-6-1, already locked into the 7th seed, and rolling out Clayton Tune at quarterback while Jordan Love is tucked safely on the sideline with January in mind. Books looked at rookie quarterback versus a third stringer, and one team with nothing to play for slapped a big number on Minnesota and called it a day. That is where things start to get interesting for the underdog. When you peel back the score lines and look at how these teams actually play, Green Bay is not acting like your standard mail-it-in, rest everybody, preseason group. LaFleur still runs a real offense with the same structure, same motions, same shifts, even when the quarterback changes, and that gives a guy like Tune a pretty friendly runway. He does not have to be a hero, he just has to keep the car between the lines while the scheme manufactures answers for him and the Packers lean into the ground game and easy throws. And for the guys around him, this is not a throwaway afternoon. It is put something on tape right before the playoffs or before free agency season. That edge of desperation from depth players, the ones fighting for reps and contracts, is often worth more against the spread than a star wideout playing at 80% speed in a game that will not change his January schedule. Minnesota, of course, has every reason to bring real energy, and you can feel how proud that defense is of what it has built this year. They have turned into a genuine problem, one of the league's best in terms of choking off explosives and forcing long, patient drives. But that kind of defense also lends itself to a certain type of game, the slow grind variety where you win with field position, not fireworks. They would love to flash the score at the end and say we finished with a winning record, and they would love to do it while giving their home crowd one last reminder of how nasty this unit can be. Still, the offense has been a step behind all year, with a rookie quarterback who has taken his lumps and a passing game that often feels like it is working very hard to get to 20 points. Even when the Vikings do win, it very often looks like a grind rather than a track meet, and that is not the ideal profile for laying a big, inflated number. It also matters that Green Bay already saw this offense and made it look very small for 4 quarters in the first meeting, a 23-6 Packers win where the Vikings simply could not get out of their own way. Different week, same building type, same coaching staffs. The Vikings still want to ride that defense and ask their quarterback to avoid the big mistake, while the Packers still have a front that is good enough to force long fields and make Minnesota string together 12-play drives instead of 4-play haymakers. Put that inside a dome, add a Green Bay team that has quietly been one of the league's better offenses for most of the season, but is now playing with house money and zero pressure, and you get the classic setup for a too many points dog that just keeps hanging around. As our first pick for this matchup, the Green Bay Packers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. If the spread is being driven almost entirely by the quarterback situations and motivational angles, the total is being shaped by something even more stubborn, the way these two teams have played all year long. Minnesota has a defense that lives to suffocate drives, and an offense that rarely turns games into shootouts unless something truly strange happens. Green Bay, meanwhile, is deliberately taking the air out of its own attack for this one by sitting Jordan Love and handing the keys to Clayton Tune, which pretty much screams, don't make the game longer than it has to be from a play-calling standpoint. Think about the incentives here. The Packers already know they are going on the road next week as the 7th seed, so this is not the spot to call a bunch of deep dropbacks and risk extra hits on linemen who already have a long injury list behind them. You can almost sketch the script in pencil. Plenty of early down runs, simple play action, half-field reads for 2, and if it is 3rd and long, nobody is crying if the punt team jogs on and the clock keeps moving. The goal for Green Bay is very likely to get out healthy, get Toon some controlled experience, and maybe steal a game if the defense or special teams hand them a short field. That mindset rarely produces a game that explodes past a modest total. On the Vikings side, you have a defense that has quietly turned into one of the most efficient units in football, top tier by expected points added, limiting opponents to around 20 points per game and ranking near the top of the league in yards allowed. They force you to nickel and dime your way down the field, they rally to the ball, and when they get you in second and long or third and long, they are very happy to let the pass rush and coverage take over. That style is a dream for the under because it squeezes possessions. Long drives that end in field goals are basically gold for anyone holding an under ticket. Offensively, Minnesota has been living in that awkward neighborhood where the quarterback is learning on the job. The protection is not always clean, and the passing game will flash for a drive, then vanish for a quarter. They are stuck in the low 20s in scoring on average, and while they still have a true number one receiver chasing personal milestones, this is not a lineup and empty and throw 40 times operation. The more they lean on that defense and on controlling the ball, the more likely this game is to slide into that classic 20-17, 23-13 type of script that sits right in the sweet spot for a low total. And remember, even though this is indoors at US Bank Stadium with no wind or snow to mess up kicking or passing, the lack of weather chaos cuts both ways. There is no random 48-yard missed field goal to set up a short field, no fumbled snap in freezing rain, fewer of those what just happened plays that suddenly add 14 fast points to a game that did not deserve them. When you combine a defense-first Vikings mindset with a dialed-back Packers offense led by a third-string quarterback who has every reason to play cautiously, the ceiling on this game's scoring feels capped in a very natural way. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Los Angeles Chargers versus Denver Broncos. It is not the flashiest game on the Week 18 slate, but Sunday's matchup between the Chargers and Broncos could quietly shift the American Football Conference playoff picture. Denver is chasing the top seed in the conference, while Los Angeles sits in that projected 7-seed spot if the favorites handle their business this weekend. Normally, with a total sitting well under 40 and the way the Chargers like to play, this would be a classic spot to think about the underdog. Honestly, with their injury list and this week's availability report, it is really hard to make that leap. On paper, the situation leans heavily toward Denver. The Broncos' defense should be able to pin its ears back, rush the passer, and feed off a loud home crowd. The biggest issue for Los Angeles is that they are sitting a banged-up Justin Herbert, which instantly leaves their offense at a huge disadvantage against one of the best defenses in the league. Denver comes in needing a win to lock up the 1 seed, while the Chargers are basically waving the white flag and resting key starters. The Broncos are 7-1 at home this year, and even though they are not great at putting teams away, they have been excellent in tight games. Los Angeles will roll out Trey Lance at quarterback, which is intriguing on paper, but you have to match that up with their offensive line problems, and the picture gets ugly fast. Without Herbert, it is tough to picture the Chargers having much success through the air on Sunday. That likely pushes Jim Harbaugh's team toward a ground-heavy approach, trying to shorten the game and lean on the run. Even then, it is hard to see Los Angeles hanging close to Denver for a full 4 quarters. Denver has not had many chances to cover a number this big, but this feels like a spot where you can expect a statement-type performance. So I am comfortable laying the points with Bo Nix and the Broncos here. As our first pick for this matchup, the Denver Broncos to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The expectation is that the Chargers sit Justin Herbert, and it makes sense. He has taken a beating behind a patchwork offensive line all season, and while the Chargers could technically tweak their positioning, they already know they are playing on Wild Card Weekend. Health becomes the real priority, not squeezing out a marginal upgrade in seeding. On the other sideline, it is simple for Denver, win and you are the 1 seed. Style points do not matter much in that situation. We saw that last week when the Broncos scored only 20 and still won by 7 against a Chiefs team that spent most of the game with a third-string quarterback on the field. With that context, you can expect the Broncos to lean on the run, manage the game, and keep things efficient and controlled. The goal is to get through the day with a solid victory over a worn-down division rival, not to turn the afternoon into a track meet. Given how strong the Denver defense is compared to a Chargers offense missing Herbert, it is reasonable to think Los Angeles struggles to reach even 10 to 13 points. If the Broncos are running the ball, chewing clock, and their defense is suffocating a short-handed attack, that combination naturally pulls the total down. Denver does not need to push for 40 points when a clean, low-stress win will do just fine. So even though this is already a low number, there is a clear path for this game to stay under the posted total, and it is low for a very real reason. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Kansas City Chiefs versus Las Vegas Raiders. The 2025 NFL season closes for both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders when they meet in Week 18 on Sunday afternoon, and there is no drama about the playoff picture because neither team is sniffing the postseason. That part makes the matchup feel a bit like a formality on paper, but it actually sets up a pretty clear angle. Las Vegas, even against a struggling Kansas City group, is basically an automatic fade at this point. When the Raiders are catching fewer than 7 points, it turns into a can't-miss chance to go against them, no matter who is on the other sideline. They were awful earlier in the year when they were at least pretending to push for wins, and now the vibe is completely different. Head coach Pete Carroll's team is barely hiding its lack of interest, and you can even argue there is a quiet hope in that building that the losses keep coming. Week 17 was a perfect illustration. The Raiders ran into the Giants in what felt like a strange kind of race for control of the #1 pick in the 2026 draft. With their two best players, defensive end Max Crosby and tight end Brock Bowers, already shut down for the rest of the season, it was no surprise that Las Vegas got hammered 34-10. They lost to the other worst team in the league by 24 points, and that result says plenty without needing a fancy model. Kansas City has had a miserable year by its usual standards, and the season is ending much sooner than anyone there expected, but you can at least trust this group to keep playing hard right through the tape. The Chiefs just lost to the Broncos by only 7 points on Christmas, and that game was competitive from kickoff to final whistle, not a no-show. Their offense is clearly a concern with Patrick Mahomes sidelined, and nobody is pretending otherwise, but it does not need to suddenly look explosive to handle this version of the Raiders comfortably. On top of that, the schedule sets up nicely for them. Andy Reid's team is essentially working off a mini-bye, and giving him extra prep time, even for a game that means nothing in the standings, has usually been a recipe for good things. So while the season has been rough, the matchup, motivation edge, and coaching setup all tilt strongly in one direction. As our first pick for this matchup, the Kansas City Chiefs to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. A total around 36.5 in the modern NFL is the odds makers basically muttering, expect punts, expect field position, expect everyone scrolling their phones by the middle of the third quarter. It is the kind of line you hang when you are not just skeptical about one offense, you are skeptical about both of them showing up at the same time. On paper, the season averages for these teams hover in the low 40s for combined points, with Kansas City games landing in that 40-plus window and Raiders games just a tick under it. But that was with more firepower on the field than we are going to see in this specific afternoon. Those numbers were built with Mahomes taking snaps, with Geno healthy, and with Bowers and Crosby actually on the field forcing games to tilt into keep up or get run over mode. Strip that away and what you are left with is a matchup headlined by backup quarterbacks, a home offense that has been dead last in scoring, dead last on the ground, and living in the basement on third down, and a road team that has been leaning more and more on its defense to define the game script. Allegiant Stadium takes weather completely out of the equation, so there is no mystery wind, rain, or snow coming to gift either side short fields or busted coverages for cheap points. Instead, you are likely looking at coaches who know this season is already written and who are far more interested in getting out with no new injuries than they are in running high-risk, high-variance stuff just for fun. That usually means a lot of safer throws, run calls on early downs, and drives that use plenty of play clock even when they stall out. The defense that is actually playing well gets to dictate tempo, rush with confidence, and squeeze windows for a quarterback who has not seen that many live bullets, while the struggling offense on the other side becomes even more conservative because every mistake feels like piling onto a rough year. You can almost picture the rhythm without even putting a score on it. Longer possessions that chew time, red zone trips that end with field goals instead of touchdowns, and a fourth quarter where the team ahead is perfectly content to hand the ball off 3 times and punt rather than opening the door to anything weird. The trailing side, especially if it is already thinking about draft order and off-season decisions, is not exactly in hero ball mode either, which means fewer desperation deep shots and more let us run our stuff and get on the plane drives. All of that points away from a game that chases the number and more toward one that flirts with long, quiet stretches on the scoreboard, even if there are a couple of early scoring bursts to keep fans awake. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. New York Jets versus Buffalo Bills. This spread has crashed after the news that Josh Allen might miss this one, but it really feels like the market has swung too far, and that opens a clear chance to back the Bills to win this by at least a touchdown at home against a miserable Jets team. Buffalo would obviously take a hit if Allen sits, but this Jets defense has completely fallen apart lately, giving up 34, 48, 29, and 42 points in its last 4 games, which is a staggering slide for a unit that was supposed to be the strength of the team. New York has dropped each of those 4 by at least 23 points, so if Tyler Show and the Saints can hang that kind of number on them, it is pretty easy to trust Mitch Trubisky to move the ball in a loud, cold Highmark Stadium with a fired-up crowd. The Bills already have a wild card spot secured, but they still have seeding to play for, so you should still expect a focused effort from Sean McDermott's group, not a preseason jog. They had rattled off 4 straight wins before that stumble against the Eagles, and they are not going to complain about grabbing some momentum before the real knockouts begin. On the other side, the Jets have just collapsed. It is almost jarring how quickly it has gone wrong for them over the last month. Brady Cook is set to start again, and while he has not been totally awful, dropping him into a possible snow game in freezing conditions in Buffalo sounds like inviting mistakes. Buffalo has a real opportunity to climb out of the 7th seed with a win, so there is still something tangible on the line. At the same time, their road playoff path is basically set, so they are not going to empty the tank on every snap, which is slightly funny because they might not even need to. The Jets are 0-4 straight up and against the spread over their last 4 games, and they have lost those by an average margin of 26.7 points, which is the sort of number you usually only see on video games when someone sets the difficulty wrong. Regardless of how intense the Bills are from snap 1, and even if they rotate or rest some pieces, the Jets look like a team in full tank mode, getting hammered on both offense and defense. Buffalo is 4-0 straight up and against the spread in the last 4 meetings with the Jets, winning those by an average of 18.7 points, so this matchup has been one-way traffic for a while. The Jets have scored 10 points or fewer in 3 of their last 4 games, and with a defense that might end up in the record books for going a whole season without a single interception, there is just nothing on this roster that screams late surge. Even if Buffalo pulls the plug on some starters, it still sets up as a spot where they can win by at least a touchdown without breaking much of a sweat. As our first pick for this matchup, the Buffalo Bills to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. On one hand, the Bills' offense could be watered down if Allen is out and if they keep things fairly conservative. On the other hand, this Jets defense has recently been handing out big totals to pretty much everyone, which makes you double take a bit. At the same time, the Jets' offense is in dreadful shape, and it is really tough to picture them stringing together many scoring drives with Brady Cook running things in rough, wintry conditions. Putting that all together, a lower scoring game still feels more likely, so taking a shot on the under makes sense. The Jets have put up only 46 total points over their last 4 games, so that is 11.5 per outing, and there is not much evidence that Cook suddenly fixes that against a Bills defense that has allowed the fewest passing yards in the league. Breece Hall remains one of the few bright spots and should be leaned on again, especially with Buffalo showing some issues against the run. But you can fully expect McDermott to have that circled on the whiteboard, load the box when needed, and try to choke off Hall so that Cook has to win it with his arm. New York's defense has given up huge numbers recently, but if Buffalo jumps out to a comfortable lead, they can shift to a run-heavy script, drain the clock, and quietly walk away with the win while minimizing injury risk before the playoffs. If Mitch Trubisky is the starter, it might also take him a couple of drives to find full game rhythm, which again leans more toward a modest total. It is not a layup call, because blowouts can sometimes drag games over late, but with snow in the forecast and both teams having very different motivations, the under still feels like the side that makes the most sense. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.